In this video, we'll be taking a look at 5 NBA games happening on January 15, 2026, and providing you with free team picks and total picks for each one of those games, so 10 picks in total. Welcome back to Cash Out Sports. Let's dive right into it. Oh, and don't forget to subscribe and to click the bell icon to get notified as soon as these videos get released, so that you have more time to plan out your bets as we provide these videos on a daily basis. I can guarantee that you'll have all the important information that you'll need on these 5 NBA games after fully watching this video. One more thing before we start, if you would like to gain access to our best exclusive sports picks to take your journey to the next level, then check out our Patreon in the link down below, where we offer our best single picks, parlay picks, and much more. Now let's get started. Memphis Grizzlies versus Orlando Magic. The Memphis Grizzlies and Orlando Magic meet on Thursday in NBA action at the Uber Arena in Germany, and it is a pretty quirky spot for both sides. Memphis just lost to the Thunder, scraped past the Nets, and now runs into the Magic, all while dropping 6 of their last 8 games overall. That narrow win over Brooklyn did not exactly scream turning the corner. It felt more like survival against a struggling team than a statement. On the other side, Orlando comes in off a loss to the 76ers, a win over the Pelicans, and they are still sitting on a run of 21 wins across their last 35 outings. They have also split their last 14 games, which sounds steady, but they actually have not stacked back-to-back wins since the start of December, so the rhythm is a bit choppy even in a mostly positive stretch. In terms of who is actually available, the Grizzlies are still without Ja Morant, Ty Jerome, Scottie Pippen Jr., and Brandon Clark, so the rotation is patched together again and again. That would be enough on its own, but you also have the Morant trade chatter hanging over everything, which can turn into background noise that gets louder every game and makes it easier for a group to emotionally check out a little. It is not hard to imagine this team going through the motions while they wait to see what the roster looks like in a few weeks. The Magic are missing Jalen Suggs once again, which obviously matters, but overall they are still much closer to full strength, and they get Franz Wagner back in the mix to stabilize their offense and give them another reliable creator. Their 15-25 mark against the spread looks ugly at first glance, and honestly it is not pretty, but they are still finding ways to win games outright, which tells you they can control stretches even if they are not covering numbers as often as bettors would like. One big wrinkle here is the location. In Germany, with Wagner on the court, this is going to feel like a Magic home crowd more than a neutral floor, and that extra push can make a difference when one team is healthier and more settled while the other is worn down and dealing with noise off the court. Neutral site games can be tricky to call, sure, but when you compare current form, body language, and injury lists, Orlando clearly looks more stable and more trustworthy. At close to full strength, the Magic should be in position to control this matchup against a Grizzlies team that is beat up physically and a bit distracted mentally, so the preference lands on the favorite to get the job done over 4 quarters. As our first pick for this matchup, the Orlando Magic to win and cover the spread as favorites is our full game side pick. Memphis is averaging 115.9 points per game on 45.7% shooting from the field while giving up 116.6 points on 46.4% shooting on the other end. They knock down 35% of their threes and hit 80% at the free throw line, which keeps their offense afloat even when the shots in the paint are not falling cleanly. Defensively, they are allowing opponents to shoot 36.3% from deep, and they are pulling in 46.2 rebounds per night, so there are plenty of possessions and second chances built into their typical box score. Orlando is putting up 116.8 points per game on 46.6% shooting and allowing 115.1 points on 47.6% shooting, which is a very similar scoring band with just a slightly different profile. They are hitting 34% from beyond the arc and 78.8% at the line, and they allow 35.9% shooting from 3 while grabbing 44.8 rebounds per game, which again points to games with steady tempo and enough empty defensive trips to help totals creep upward. When you put those averages side by side, you get 2 teams that tend to live in the mid-100 teens on both offense and defense, so it does not take much, one big quarter or a few hot stretches from 3, for a matchup like this to push past a standard projected number. Even on a neutral court, where sometimes players need a few minutes to feel comfortable with the rims and depth perception, the combination of offensive talent on both sides and some leaky spots defensively makes a strong case for a scoreboard that keeps moving rather than stalling for long stretches. As our second pick for this matchup, over the projected total is our full game total pick. Phoenix Suns versus Detroit Pistons. The Phoenix Suns and Detroit Pistons square off on Thursday night at Little Caesars Arena, and both teams come in playing some pretty confident basketball lately. The Suns beat the Wizards, then slipped in a loss to the Heat, and they have the Knicks on deck. But the main thing is they have taken 10 of their last 14 games overall, which says their form has been strong for a while now. The Pistons took care of the Bulls, then fell to the Clippers, and they have the Pacers up next, while quietly putting together 12 wins in their last 18, which is a very solid stretch for them too. For this matchup, the Suns have already ruled out Jalen Green again, and Devin Booker is sitting on the injury report as questionable, so that clouds things a bit on their side. Detroit, on the other hand, expects to have a full squad, and that includes Cade Cunningham back in the lineup, which matters a lot because he has been in stellar form all season and he is the engine that makes their offense feel settled and creative. Even with those health concerns, the Suns are more than capable of going on the road and pulling off an upset, and that is not just wishful thinking, since they were on a great run before that tight loss to the Heat that could have gone either way late. Here is the thing though, against the spread, the Pistons have been pretty hit or miss over the last few weeks, which can be frustrating to back, while the Suns are sitting at 27-11-2 against the spread this season, which is a fantastic number for bettors. They quietly have a top 10 defensive rating, which can get overshadowed by their big names on offense, and they have still taken 7 of their last 10 games, so the results and the underlying profile are lining up nicely most nights. When you zoom in on the situational trends, the Suns are 6-3 against the spread in their last 9 games as underdogs of 5 or more points, so they have been very live when the market expects them to be chasing. The Pistons are 4-7 against the spread in their last 11 games as favorites of 5 or more points, which tells you they have not consistently handled the role of clear favorite as well as you might expect given their recent win-loss form. With a cover rate north of 70%, no team in the league is close to the Suns this season when it comes to putting money in your pocket, and that kind of track record is hard to just ignore in a spot where they are catching points again. So even if Detroit is healthier, the combination of Phoenix's defensive profile, season-long against the spread strength, and ability to stay inside bigger numbers makes the underdog side feel like the smarter way to lean here. As our first pick for this matchup, the Phoenix Suns to cover the spread as underdogs is our full game side pick. The Suns are averaging 114.7 points per game while shooting 46.3% from the field, and they are allowing 111.8 points on 46.7% shooting on the defensive end. They are hitting 36.3% of their threes and 79.5% from the free throw line, which gives them a pretty stable offensive floor since they can stretch the floor and cash in at the stripe even when the mid-range or rim looks are not perfect. On defense, they are allowing opponents to shoot 34.9% from deep and they are grabbing 43.5 rebounds per game. So you get a mix of decent resistance on the perimeter but also enough missed shots and boards to keep possessions flowing. The Pistons are playing in a slightly higher scoring lane, averaging 118.8 points per game on 48% shooting, and they are allowing 112.7 points on 44.4% shooting on the other side of the ball. They are knocking down 35.1% of their three-point attempts and 75.3% of their free throws, which is respectable, and they are allowing 35% shooting from deep while pulling in 46.3 rebounds per game. So there are plenty of opportunities for both transition and second chance points built into their usual box scores. And when you put those numbers together, you are looking at two teams that tend to live in the 100 teens on both ends, which naturally pulls the total into a higher range. Phoenix has the shooting to keep up even if a key scorer is limited, and Detroit has the scoring punch to force a response over 4 quarters, so it only takes one hot stretch in each half for the scoreboard to push beyond a typical line. With both sides comfortable around these offensive averages and the rebounding numbers supporting extra chances, the flow of this game leans more toward an up and down, steady scoring rhythm than a slow, defensive slugfest for long stretches. As our second pick for this matchup, over the projected total is our full game total pick. Oklahoma City Thunder versus Houston Rockets. The Oklahoma City Thunder and the Houston Rockets square off on Thursday night at the Toyota Center, with each team coming in from a very different recent stretch of form. The Thunder have just beaten the Heat and the Spurs, with another date against the Heat coming up next, and that run of 38 wins in their last 45 regular season games shows how steady and dominant they have been for quite a while now. The Rockets, on the other hand, fell to the Kings, bounced back with a win over the Bulls, and then look ahead to the Timberwolves. But the bigger story in the short term is that they have dropped 3 of their last 4 games, so their momentum has cooled a bit. For this matchup, Oklahoma City is still missing Nikola Topic and Isaiah Hartenstein, and Luguentz Dort is listed as questionable, which takes away some defensive edge and lineup flexibility for them. Houston has ruled out Fred VanVleet, Dorian Finney-Smith, and Tari Eason again, so they are also dealing with key absences in the backcourt and on the wings. These teams have already faced each other once this season, with the Thunder edging the Rockets 125-124 in double overtime back on October 21st, so it is fair to think this could turn into another tight battle where neither side completely pulls away. Given that larger body of work and current form, the Thunder understandably should be favored, and the fact they are only a small favorite makes them pretty appealing at first glance. If you are just looking at the standings and recent win rates, the Rockets have been hit and miss over the last few weeks, which is exactly the kind of pattern that makes people hesitate to back them against a team as consistent as Oklahoma City. Here is the thing, though. This spot shapes up like a classic measuring stick game for Houston, a chance for them to show they belong on the floor with one of the hottest regular season teams, and that kind of stage often brings out a sharper focus and effort at home. Oklahoma City is coming off that win over the Spurs, finally getting past that particular hurdle, and that can quietly create a bit of a letdown spot, where the emotional high fades and the next game feels a touch flatter. Meanwhile, the Rockets are 12-2 straight up at home this season, and they have not been a home underdog since April of last year, which says a lot about how strong and respected they usually are in their own building. You can reasonably expect them to have a pep in their step here, because if they want to convince themselves they can contend, they have to treat games like this as steps along that path, not just another night on the schedule. Honestly, if you are the Rockets, what more could you really ask for than a test like this at home, with the chance to send a message to yourselves as much as anyone else? So while the Thunder deserve to be the favorite based on results and overall consistency, the combination of Houston's strong home record, the emotional setup, and the letdown angle on the Oklahoma City side all lean toward taking the points with the home underdog rather than laying them with the road favorite. As our first pick for this matchup, the Houston Rockets to cover the spread as underdogs is our full game side pick. The Oklahoma City Thunder are averaging 121.4 points on 8.9% shooting and allowing 108.4 points on 43.7% shooting. They are shooting 35.5% from beyond the arc and 82.6% from the free throw line, which gives them a reliable mix of perimeter scoring and efficiency at the stripe. They are allowing 37.6% shooting from deep and grabbing 43.9 rebounds per game, so their games tend to feature a lot of three-point attempts and enough missed shots to create extra possessions and swings in scoring runs. The Houston Rockets are averaging 117.9 points on 48.1% shooting and allowing 110.8 points on 46.3% shooting. They are hitting 37.2% of their three-pointers and 76.7% of their free throws, which keeps their offense ticking even when the shots inside are not perfect. They are allowing 35.5% shooting from deep and pulling down 49.1 rebounds per game, a number that hints at plenty of opportunities for second chance points and quick transition chances off the glass. When you put those profiles side by side, you get two teams that both live in the 100 teens on the scoreboard, while also allowing opponents to score in similar ranges, which means you do not need anything wild for this matchup to flirt with a higher total. Both sides have solid three-point shooting numbers, good free throw production, and strong rebounding totals, all of which support a flow where possessions keep coming and scoring does not stall for long stretches. So from a totals perspective, the statistical picture suggests a game with enough pace, efficiency, and shot volume on both sides for the combined score to lean toward clearing a standard projected number rather than coming in on the low side. As our second pick for this matchup, over the projected total is our full game total pick. Boston Celtics versus Miami Heat. The Boston Celtics and Miami Heat meet on Thursday in Miami at the Kaseya Center, and both teams bring some baggage into this one. Boston has just taken back-to-back losses to the Spurs and Pacers, with the Hawks up next on their schedule, even though they have still managed to win 16 of their last 23 games overall, so the bigger picture is not quite as gloomy as the last week feels. Miami comes in off a loss to the Thunder, a win over the Suns, and another date with the Thunder on deck, but the more immediate concern is that they have dropped 3 of their last 4, so the form line is wobbling a bit compared to where they want to be. On the injury front, the Celtics have ruled out Jason Tatum and Josh Minott, which obviously takes a star out of the mix and trims their depth just a little more. The Heat have Davion Mitchell listed as doubtful and Jaime Jaquez Jr. tagged as questionable, so their rotation could be missing key pieces on the perimeter and in the wing scoring department, depending on how those calls go before tip. Even though Boston has not been at its best lately and will be kicking itself after that heartbreaking loss to the lowly Pacers, they still feel like the more stable side compared to a Heat team that is beat up and unpredictable from one night to the next. They already handled the last meeting between these two back on December 19th, winning in convincing fashion and reminding everyone that their ceiling is still higher when things are clicking, regardless of venue. Miami is getting some respect in the market because it is a home game and they just beat the Suns, and sure, that matters, but home court and one nice win do not magically fix how hard they can be to read from game to game. When you factor in that both Mitchell and Jaquez Jr. are important rotation pieces whose production is not easy to replace if they are limited or out, the Heat's margin for error tightens up fast, especially against a team that usually punishes lapses. Meanwhile, even with the recent stumbles, the Celtics keep stacking wins and covering spreads over the broader sample, and they are 8-2 straight up and against the spread in their last 10 games against the Heat, which is not nothing when you think about how these matchups usually tilt. With Boston still the more trustworthy side and the number sitting at a short lay-a-bucket type spread, backing the favorite becomes a case of siding with the team that has consistently shown a higher floor, even while shorthanded. As our first pick for this matchup, the Boston Celtics to win and cover the spread as favorites is our full game side pick. The Celtics are averaging 117.2 points per game on 47.3% shooting from the field and allowing 110.5 points on 45% shooting on the defensive end, which paints a picture of an offense that is efficient and a defense that is sturdy enough to keep opponents from going wild most nights. They are hitting 37.1% of their threes and 79% at the free throw line, while allowing 36.8% shooting from deep and grabbing 44.4 rebounds per game, so their games often feature good spacing, solid defensive resistance on the perimeter, and a reasonable grip on the glass. The Heat are averaging 119.4 points on 46.9% shooting while giving up 117.7 points on 46% shooting, which says they can absolutely score but also tend to be involved in some high-variance stretches on defense. They are knocking down 36.9% of their three-point attempts and 79% of their free throws, and they allow just 34.5% shooting from beyond the arc while pulling in 45.6 rebounds per game, which hints at a group that can chase shooters off the line and finish possessions when the defense is actually set. Now, here is where the injuries loop back into the total conversation a bit. If Jaquez Jr. is limited or out, Miami loses a crafty scorer and playmaker who helps keep their offense flowing, and if rotation pieces are in and out, it can lead to clunkier lineups, more half-court possessions, and a slightly slower tempo than the raw scoring averages alone might suggest. On the other side, Boston being without Tatum naturally puts more weight on others to create, and that can shift them into a more methodical style where they lean on their structure and defense rather than turning things into a track meet. So even though both teams have the ability to put up numbers and their averages sit in the 100 teens, the mix of solid defensive metrics, decent three-point defense on both sides, and the potential for slightly disjointed offenses with key players on the injury report nudges this matchup toward a tighter, more controlled scoring environment than a pure shootout. You can easily imagine stretches where both teams buckle down, possessions slow, and the final combined score comes in under what the raw season scoring numbers might imply at first glance. As our second pick for this matchup, under the projected total is our full game total pick. Milwaukee Bucks versus San Antonio Spurs. The Milwaukee Bucks and San Antonio Spurs meet on Thursday at the Frost Bank Center, and both teams walk in with something to prove after rough outings. The Bucks have dropped 3 of their last 4 games, with that 33-point loss to the Timberwolves really sticking out, especially since Minnesota did it without Anthony Edwards on the floor. Milwaukee expects to have a full squad ready, which at least removes the injury excuse and puts the focus squarely on effort and execution. And you could tell from the home crowd boos that the fans felt the same way. It clearly got under Giannis's skin. Sometimes that kind of public embarrassment can jolt a team into a sharper performance. Sometimes it can rattle confidence for a bit, and that uncertainty is part of what makes this spot so tricky. On the other side, the Spurs have again ruled out Devin Vassell, but even without him they have managed to win 26 of their last 41 games, and they are back at home where they are 13-5 straight up, which is no small thing. They are also coming off back-to-back losses to the Timberwolves and Thunder, so their motivation to snap back into form in front of their own crowd should be pretty high, just from pride alone. The Spurs might be struggling for form in the short term, but the timing here feels favorable for them. They are catching a Bucks team that looks vulnerable, a bit shaken, and maybe 1 or 2 more bad weeks away from some serious roster questions. If Giannis has a monster night, of course Milwaukee can flip the script and pull the upset. That is always in play with a player like that, but the more reasonable expectation is that San Antonio leans on its home strength, steadies itself, and pulls away late. Given the context, the recent performances, and how these teams feel emotionally right now, it is easier to trust the Spurs to win this one at home and cover what looks like a reasonable favorites number rather than banking on the Bucks suddenly fixing everything on the road. As our first pick for this matchup, the San Antonio Spurs to win and cover the spread as favorites is our full game side pick. The Bucks are averaging 112.9 points on 48.5% shooting from the field while allowing 115.1 points on 46.4% shooting, so they are efficient offensively but also leaky enough defensively to give up real runs. They are shooting 39.5% from beyond the arc and 73.9% at the free throw line, numbers that show they can stretch the floor and still leave a few points on the table at the stripe. They are allowing 36.3% shooting from deep and grabbing 40.6 rebounds per game, which keeps the pace manageable and does not automatically create a track meet every night. The Spurs, for their part, are averaging 118.1 points on 47.3% shooting and allowing 112.6 points on 46% shooting, so their games tend to feature solid scoring but not necessarily non-stop chaos. They are hitting 34.6% of their threes and 79.7% from the free throw line, with opponents shooting 36% from deep while they pull down 46.8 rebounds per game, which hints at a lot of possessions ending with a controlled rebound rather than endless second chances. When you blend those profiles together, you get two teams that can certainly score, but you also see enough rebounding, enough controlled half-court possessions, and just enough inconsistency, especially on the Bucks side after that blowout, for this game to slow into stretches where the scoreboard does not race away. If the Spurs lean into their home advantage by tightening up defensively and the Bucks try to steady themselves with more deliberate offense after being booed off their own floor, it is easy to imagine a fairly competitive game that stays under a typical total, even with those offensive averages on the page. As our second pick for this matchup, under the projected total is our full game total pick. That's all for now, so if you have any other games you would like reviewed, then leave a comment down below with the game you would like analyzed, subscribe to our channel, leave a like on this video, and we'll get to it as soon as we possibly can. We would also love to hear your opinion on the picks presented to you in this video, whether you agree or disagree with them, so leave a comment down below and do let us know.